Welcome to the AI Agent Series, brought to you by LG Electronics and TTimes. Hi everyone, I'm Jae Hong, a reporter from TTimes.
Hello, I'm Inho Bae, a researcher at LG Electronics.
Today on our AI Agent Series, you might think, oh, this guest is quite a surprise. He's been busy writing his book on Go, which he's mentioned before. Please welcome author Kang-myeong Jang. Great to have you here.
Hello, great to be here. Hi Hong, hi Mr. Bae, I'm Kang-myeong Jang.
With this Go project too, you're actually working on something that's tied to AI, right? I mean, after AlphaGo, AI has clearly become part of the Go world and the way the game is played. So maybe we could start by asking, what first got you interested in AI?
I strongly believe AI will have a far greater impact on our lives, mine, yours, Mr. Hong, Mr. Bae, and everyone tuning in, than any recent event we've experienced. So in a way, that future arrived in one specific field first, Go. I really believe the future hit the world of Go before anywhere else. The shock of AI hit hard, and the entire Go community went through huge changes. A lot has changed since then, so I thought, if I report on what's happened in the Go world, maybe it could serve as a kind of preview for other fields. A way to see how the shock of AI might unfold elsewhere. It could show us the kinds of changes to expect, and maybe even help us think about how we should prepare. That's the mindset I had going into this project.
You're diving deep into how AI is shaking things up and building something around that right now. So could you give us a little sneak peek into what happened in the world of Go? Just a taste of how much AI has really changed things there.
Oh, it's changed dramatically. Far more than people outside the Baduk community realize. Baduk has traditionally been a bit closed off, so many of these big changes have gone unnoticed. It's changed in a fundamental qualitative way. The biggest shift is the way people actually *play *go now. There's even a whole new opening strategy called AI Fuzeki, the AI opening. If you go back and watch the original commentary from the first match between AlphaGo and Lee Sedol, it's really fascinating.
When they play a match, the commentary is done by the top level people. The professionals do the commentary, and at first they say, oh, AlphaGo is making another mistake. Oh, this move is really hard to understand. They wonder why they were so nervous. They kind of mock AlphaGo.
And now it has to do the thing you built it to do.
근데 여기서 알파고가 찼서부터 지금 고민을 하고 있거든요.
지금 알파고의 시간을 한번 잘 보시면요. 지금 30초가 넘어가고 있는데 근데 진짜 두 번째 수를 너무 생각을 하네요.
네.
And then, after laughing at AlphaGo for a while, there's this point later in the match when the commentators just go silent. They were absolutely sure AlphaGo had made tons of mistakes, move after move that seemed like obvious blunders. They even joked, there's nothing to worry about here. But then, after a long silence, they finally said, we're really sorry, everyone. We actually don't understand what's going on. Somehow AlphaGo seems to be significantly ahead. It was such a stunning moment.
아까 사실 제가 하다가 말을 멈춘 게 계산을 했는데 이상하게 알파고가 조금 좋은 것 같아가지고 진짜인가 해가지고 믿어지지.
This happened in Game 1, and it's happening again here in Game 2. In Game 2, people weren't openly mocking AlphaGo as much anymore. The mood shifted. AlphaGo is making moves that no human player would ever consider. And then even in Game 2, later on, the commentator ended up apologizing. I'm really sorry, everyone. From a human perspective, I kept thinking Lee Sedol was ahead all along. But honestly, I'm not quite sure how AlphaGo is managing to win right now. Even the world's top Go players at the time couldn't quite figure out the moves AlphaGo was making. It was completely beyond their understanding. The moves themselves, just the moves alone, were baffling. They were on a completely different level, way beyond what anyone had seen before, and that's exactly why nobody could make sense of them. Then, once people realized AlphaGo was clearly playing at a higher level, they started carefully studying its game records to learn from them. Later, when AlphaGo retired from competitive play, its creators opened up the algorithm to the public. After that, a bunch of new Go AI programs started popping up, all built upon AlphaGo's groundbreaking technology. So now people can even install these AI programs at home and play matches. It became much easier for players to study and analyze AlphaGo's strategies. If you compare this to the literary world, it'd be like aliens suddenly showing up and teaching us a totally new way of writing novels. It will be completely different from what you typically learn in creative writing classes, but also way more advanced, leading to far superior storytelling. And once people really dug into these new strategies, they realized that a lot of the standard moves we'd relied on in the past turned out to be wrong. Right before AlphaGo appeared, the standard textbook moves young prodigies had to learn numbered around 30,000. But if you ask people today how things have changed, a lot of people are pretty blunt about it. They'll straight up say, yeah, all that stuff, toss it. All those old books on standard openings, useless now. That's how much things have changed. And actually, after Lee Sedol retired, there was a conversation he had probably at a Google event marking an AlphaGo anniversary where they talked about all this. In that conversation, he said something really striking. All the game records we've had up until now are only valuable historically. It's the AI records that are correct now. With this shift, the whole way Go is played has changed dramatically. Naturally, professional players who stick to the old methods end up falling behind those who've embraced the new AI-inspired strategies.
Let me explain briefly what I mean by standard moves. At the start of a Baduk game, there are 361 spots on the board, which feels vast and overwhelming. So if I place my stone here, my opponent typically responds somewhere around there. Think of it like a choreographed fight sequence. When I throw my right fist, my partner throws theirs too, and then I block with my left hand. In the early part of the game, players have these set patterns that both sides kind of agree on. For about 20 or 30 moves, the mindset is, I'll play around here, you'll respond there, and we'll both be in decent shape. It's almost like a coordinated dance at the beginning, where both sides follow these familiar patterns before breaking into more creative play. And these sequences were believed to be moves where neither player would lose out. That's how they've been seen for hundreds of years. Oh, but later it turned out this wasn't true at all. People realized, wait, this sequence actually heavily favors black, or this pattern actually gives white a huge advantage, or even, hold on, that's not a standard move at all, it doesn't make any sense. With AI completely overturning these old patterns, everyone's shifting toward the new moves taught by AI. In other words, all those years of human research have essentially become meaningless. That's exactly the point you're making, right?
Well, maybe not completely meaningless, but a huge chunk of it. And when we talk about humans trying to predict moves, we're usually thinking something like 20 or 30 moves ahead. But AI can calculate even further ahead than that. Sometimes you look at a move it makes and think, wait, why did it do that? And only towards the end do you realize that move had a purpose all along. Honestly, even now, there are still plenty of AI moves where we have no clue why it chose them. Anyway, if you look around now, there's a younger generation of players who've been seriously digging into AI moves, really studying them intensely, and they're starting to think and play just like the AI does. Those are the players who make up the strongest group in the world right now. You know what's really interesting? Back when AlphaGo defeated Lee Sedol, journalists kept asking Go players, now that AI has beaten a human, what's the future going to look like for professional Go players? What should they do next? And a lot of the players answered something like this. We'll play Go in a uniquely human style, something AI could never imitate. You know, people often ask musicians, composers, novelists, and other artists similar questions, like, if AI gets really good at composing music or creating art, what will you do then? And when they get asked this, most of them give a similar answer. We'll create music that only humans can make. Or there's something uniquely human that AI just can't imitate. But what actually happened in the Go world? Those who stuck to playing human-only styles have fallen behind. And now we're at the point where players have no choice but to learn from AI's approach. Saying, we'll play Go in our own uniquely human style sounded really romantic at first. But honestly, just seeing how that turned out, it feels kind of chilling now, doesn't it? What even is this uniquely human thing? Turns out either it doesn't really exist, or if you insist on sticking to it, you quickly find yourself tumbling down the rankings. Bong-Soo Seo, who's a 9-dan born in 1958, put it this way in an interview. If you're not studying AI nowadays, you're not really a professional Go player. You have to learn from AI. But studying AI doesn't mean you're ever going to surpass it. It's just something you've got to learn. That's how the players themselves see it. The audience has changed a lot too. It's not just about professional Go players. The very nature of Go itself has shifted. Before AlphaGo, when fans watched international tournaments, they watched with deep respect and admiration for the players. Even when fans couldn't fully understand the commentary, they'd eagerly wonder, what's the meaning behind Black's 37th move? What's the master thinking here? Maybe later they'd grasp it, or maybe they'd never fully get it. And sometimes when a move finally clicked, they'd think, that's why the master played it. What a brilliant mind. I mean, I'm saying it humorously, but that's really how fans felt. They admired these top players and wanted to be just like them. But it's not like that anymore. Now viewers at home can set up the exact same position on their computers and instantly see the AI recommended next move. And guess what? The AI move is always right. So now, watching a championship match is basically about seeing if the two finalists can find the AI's best moves or not. If they don't play the AI's move, viewers just sigh and say, there he goes again, always making mistakes mid-game. That's not respect for Go, and it's definitely not respect for the players. Back in the day, if a talented young Go player wanted to learn the very best moves, they had to learn directly from another human. That's why Lee Chang-ho, when he was just an elementary school kid, actually moved into Cho Han-hyun's home and spent all day studying Go with him. But now, Shin Jin-seo doesn't even have a human teacher. Today, if you really want to become a top-level Go player, you shouldn't be attending a Go academy at all. Instead, you just stay at home and learn directly from an AI. And think about Go academies. They still need students to survive, right? But now they can't just market themselves as places that teach Go anymore. Even the academies have had to redefine their purpose. Now they're shifting towards things like building kids' concentration, developing patience, or fostering character. The role of a Go academy itself has completely changed. It's similar to how Taekwondo academies aren't really about teaching martial arts anymore. They've basically become more like daycare centers, places for kids to run around, burn energy, and stay active. Children's Taekwondo these days has clearly taken on that kind of role. Now, Go academies have also shifted their role. They've become places where kids learn good manners, how to accept defeat graciously, and how to focus on a puzzle or board game for an hour without checking their smartphones. That's the kind of thing they're about now. Even the instructors at these Go academies can't really say, "You're wrong," to the students anymore. Instead, they have to say something like, "Oh, that's interesting. You thought this move was right? Well, let's see what our AI friend has to say about it." That's how they teach nowadays. Basically talking about Go the way people used to, as an art form, as a spiritual journey, or something deeper you're trying to explore, has become kind of awkward these days. It just doesn't feel right anymore. You know how it is. Moves that used to be considered absolutely ridiculous or totally unthinkable are now immediately labeled with something like, "This move drops your win rate by 4.9%. It sounds almost absurd, but that's exactly how things have changed. It's almost like writing a novel and suddenly seeing, adding this one sentence has improved your novel's literary value by 2.8%. It sounds ridiculous, but that's pretty much how it feels now. If someone had said something like that to me 10 years ago, I'd probably have replied, "That's ridiculous. You clearly don't understand literature. Literature doesn't work that way." But now, honestly, I find myself thinking, yeah, maybe that's actually possible. You could almost imagine someone comparing Pride and Prejudice to War and Peace and saying, War and Peace is 4.3% better in literary quality. It doesn't even sound that strange anymore. If literature ever reaches the point where comparisons like that actually seem possible, I'm honestly not sure what that means for its future. And wouldn't it be the same for music, journalism, pretty much every field out there?
Exactly. Everything could become a numbers game. Like someone could casually say, "Oh, Jay, he's a 47 as a reporter, and that other reporter's a 49, so Jay's falling behind. He'll need to crank out a few more good articles to catch up." It sounds ridiculous, but suddenly it's not so far-fetched.
But looking at the Baduk world, it seems totally possible. And the strangest part is, nobody really knows why. No one actually understands how or why the AI makes those decisions. Even the person who created AlphaGo doesn't know, and neither do the best Go players in the world. When the AI says, "This move is 2.3% better than that one," people just go along with it because, hey, it's the strongest Baduk player on Earth, so it must be right. And here's where things get a little scary. Imagine applying machine learning to something like court rulings. The data is already there, right? You could train it on every single legal decision ever made around the world. Imagine if an AI judge appeared and said something like, "This judge in Civil Division 3 of Seoul Central District Court scores 33.2% lower in judicial competence. Their rulings are risky." If that happened, who would we trust more, the human judge or the AI? Even if nobody truly knows whether the AI's assessment is accurate or not, people would still start whispering, "Yeah, I've heard that judge has issues," just because the AI said so. Human judges would start losing their authority too. They'd probably start secretly checking with AI, asking things like, "Is this ruling okay? Am I making the right decision?" They'd quietly ask at home, and if the AI said, "Yeah, that's a good ruling," they'd feel reassured and go ahead with it. But what if an AI judge or some AI court software starts saying, "Wait, this ruling has serious issues," and the human judge changes the decision based on that? At that point, who's really judging our cases, humans or AI? Honestly, it'd be impossible to tell.
Imagine applying what happened in the Baduk world to mock trials at law schools. Students run their mock trials, and in the background, everyone's secretly checking the AI's recommended ruling. And since the AI has already determined what's correct, the moment someone deviates, people could easily say, "Well, that was a bad decision," or "Looks like you messed up." It's a bit scary, but not impossible.
Just to add a little more, when it comes to court rulings or literature, things usually aren't as clear-cut as winning or losing a Baduk match. So people might not accept an AI's judgment quite as easily as they do in Baduk. It's hard to imagine everyone agreeing that quickly. But in my opinion, it's something like a blind test. For example, if you did a blind test comparing a novel written by an AI and one written by a human, and more people preferred the AI's story, that would pretty much settle the competition. People would just naturally accept that as the result. It's kind of like how we're already skeptical about psychiatrists just listening to a patient and giving a prescription. We're not completely convinced that's always the best approach anymore. If you take the exact same symptoms to different psychiatrists, you'll get different prescriptions each time. Even psychiatrists themselves aren't really sure. They don't have absolute confidence in their own diagnoses. You could easily apply machine learning to psychiatry too. Imagine gathering every diagnosis and prescription from psychiatrists around the world, along with data on patient outcomes, and training an AI psychiatrist with all that information. So, if someone said, "I'm struggling with depression," and had the choice between seeing their local psychiatrist or consulting an AI, I seriously doubt most people would just say, "I'll just go see the closest doctor and follow whatever they suggest." Those days might be numbered. In that sense, this shift could fundamentally shake up the very way we live and make decisions. After all this, the way we think about Baduk itself can't help but change. Baduk isn't the same game it used to be. It's almost become like horse racing now. Now, we're always checking the winning percentages. This player has this percent, that player has that percent. Oh, looks like this one's ahead now. Honestly, that's not much different from horse racing commentary. Okay, horse number 1 is in the lead. Wait, here comes horse number 7 catching up. The way we watch Baduk has totally changed, and deep down, the very meaning of Baduk has shifted inside our minds as well. And when you think about it, everything, medical practice, counseling, court decisions, even creating art, could change in the exact same way. Honestly, that's a pretty chilling thought.
To put it bluntly, we've basically surrendered to AI in order to win. Baduk used to be considered the ultimate analog game, something deeply human and intuitive. But now people say, actually a 19 by 19 board? That's the easiest thing in the world to digitize. Our perspective has completely flipped.
That's why when I ask people questions like, do you think AI could write a novel too? Every Baduk player and expert I've talked to, without exception, replies, why not? Of course it could.
Digital technology always seems to show up a lot in your work. Why does technology play such an important role in your stories?
I think technology, especially advanced technology, has become an existential threat to us now. You know how scientists and tech experts always say this kind of thing? Technology itself is neutral, it's just a tool. They'll say things like, a knife in a robber's hand becomes a weapon, but in a chef's hand, it helps create delicious food. But personally, I don't see it that way. If the knife you're holding is a Japanese sword, you're not going to use it to cook dinner. The intent, the purpose behind the technology, is already built into it. Take guns, for example. A gun carries the intent of the person who made it. Its purpose is clear, either to shoot and harm someone, or at least to threaten someone into submission for personal gain. You can't exactly cook dinner with a gun. Technology is never neutral. It always has intention built into it. Even when we create technologies without any specific intent, they still end up significantly influencing how we think and act. And whoever controls or masters that technology gains power, which inevitably reshapes the power structure itself. Technology combines with its users, existing institutions, existing power structures, to form what you might call a technological environment. For instance, social media has already merged completely with politics. We can't separate them anymore. They've become one inseparable unit. Social media has significantly changed politics in Korea too. Over the past decade, in major developed countries, politicians from both the right and the left who make short, punchy, and often extreme statements that grab people's attention have rapidly risen to prominence. That's become the new trend. And that's how we've ended up with far-right populism in some places and far-left populism in others. But wherever it happens, it's definitely not something you can separate from social media itself. At this point, I think it would be irresponsible and frankly inaccurate to just say, social media is neutral, it all depends on how you use it. That doesn't reflect reality anymore. When we were kids, we probably heard a lot from adults about the value of staying quiet and composed. They'd always tell us, stay humble, don't brag about your achievements, even if you did something good. Don't overreact. Don't burst into tears or make a big fuss, even if you're feeling sad. Keep your cool. Silence is golden. That's how many of us were raised. But think about kids growing up today. They're living in an SNS-driven world. What does it even mean to stay quiet and composed in an age dominated by social media? What rewards are there for being quiet these days? That's advice that worked before social media, but it doesn't apply anymore. When someone was quiet back in the offline world, it didn't mean they were invisible. Their presence still had weight. They still had a kind of quiet authority or dignity. People would notice, oh, that person rarely speaks, but when they do, everyone listens. In other words, being quiet actually gave you more influence over the long run. It could even put you in a stronger position. On the other hand, if someone was constantly talking and making a fuss about everything, their words gradually lost impact. That's exactly why I think our elders valued quietness and composure so highly. But being quiet in the social media age means having no presence at all. On social media, if you don't say anything, people won't think, oh, I wonder what they'll say next. Instead, you simply don't exist. You're invisible. In today's social media or YouTube-driven world, who do we reward? We reward the loudest voices, the people who make the biggest fuss, the ones who exaggerate and hype things up. If someone achieves even a small success, they immediately broadcast it everywhere. They shout it from the rooftops, plaster it all over their social media channels, and show everyone the proof. If someone has even a mildly sad experience and posts about it, people quickly click like, hit subscribe, and offer sympathy. We don't criticize that behavior as making a fuss anymore. We actually reward it. Instead, we say, wow, they've got great reactions. That's how we phrase it now. We might not explicitly say this to kids growing up today, but we're already creating a world that clearly rewards this kind of behavior. When countless YouTubers and social media influencers show kids that the more you hype things up, the more you brag about yourself, or the more you broadcast every little sadness, the more successful you'll be, it sends a powerful message. So now, when kids say, my dream is to become an influencer, deep down, they're already thinking, to succeed, I've got to make a big fuss. And going back to AI for a moment, I haven't met a single person who thinks AI's impact will be smaller than social media's. Everyone says the same thing. AI, it's on a completely different level. And that's why I thought, okay, I've really got to write something about AI. The Baduk world, I don't know if people in the Baduk community would like this expression, has become kind of a test bed. That feels strange to say, but it really seems like Baduk is the place where the future arrived first. In a sense, professional Baduk players were on the very front lines. They were the first people to experience this battle with AI.
It feels like all these complicated tasks we deal with now are gradually being unified under one simple UI, the AI agent. But what exactly makes us so willing to put everything under the control of AI agents? Why are we naturally drawn to that?
To put it simply, it's because all our activities are influenced by a single force. And what's that force? It's incentives. For instance, when we record this broadcast and upload it to YouTube, you're going to pick a title, right? Of course, you'll pick whichever title gets the most clicks. That's exactly what we mean by incentives. Whether we're talking about human agents or AI agents, let's say I'm an entertainment company hiring a composer, the incentive is always the same. There's really just one incentive. If I ask a human composer, hey, how can I make sure my next album sells really well? The human composer might say, well, based on my gut feeling, maybe this would work. But if you give that same question to an AI composer, it'll immediately say, make the hook exactly like this, structure the chorus like this, and include these trending keywords in the lyrics. If you do, your predicted streams and views will hit this number. For some people, the incentive is money. For others, it's recognition. And for someone else, maybe it's speed. The point is, we're not clueless about these incentives. We know exactly what they are. Those incentives were always there, even before AI. In other words, AI doesn't change the direction of incentives. But what AI does is help us chase those incentives with pinpoint accuracy, dramatically accelerating the whole process. People naturally move toward maximizing whatever incentives they have. And AI helps to maximize that in a way that we couldn't have imagined before. It shows incentives very specifically and clearly, like a few decimal points or percent, and most of us are drawn to that.
Someone pointed out that AI might be the first tool to directly affect human relationships. Like in the movie Her, where the main character receives emotional support from an AI, assuming AI can realistically mimic or express human emotions. What kind of impact might this have on our relationships with each other?
When we talk about how AI might change things or predict what could happen, we're not trying to guess the future just to be right. Instead, we're pointing out worst-case scenarios, the kinds of futures we definitely want to avoid, where our core values might get damaged, so we can recognize those dangers now and steer clear of them. It's because we had stories like Frankenstein or the Terminator that we now instinctively feel worried. If an AI or artificial life form ever starts thinking like us, what happens if it tries to take control? Those fictional scenarios shaped our fears about AI. So when such safeguards are created, and the technology advances in that way, we become cautious. The way I see it, people naturally pursue certain kinds of incentives in their relationships. What kind of incentives? Well, first of all, people hate stress. And let's face it, relationships are basically stress factories. Even hanging out with your best friend can be stressful. And marriage? You have no idea how much stress marriage adds to your life. Think about it. You marry someone because you love them more than anyone else and because you want to build a family with them, right? Divorce is stressful, but marriage is also very stressful. So one clear goal people have in their relationships is simply to reduce stress as much as possible. Another incentive is, despite all that stress, people still genuinely love spending time with other people. We love it when someone else says something kind to us, cheers us on, or offers emotional support. We absolutely crave that kind of warmth and encouragement from others. So actually, I don't think AI is the first technology to affect our relationships, not at all. Telephones already changed our relationships profoundly. Smartphones and social media, obviously, they transformed things even more drastically. Even cosmetic surgery is a technology that significantly impacts how we relate to each other. All of these technologies tap into the same human incentives. First, They reduce the stress of interacting with others. And second, they help us become more likable to other people. Why do Gen Zers prefer texting or Instagram DMs over phone calls? Because phone calls stress them out. It's that simple. But even though phone calls are stressful, you don't see Gen Zers saying, I'm quitting social media completely. Social media is really convenient, right? It makes it easy to get love and approval. You can selectively showcase just the parts you want others to see, get likes, and feel good about yourself. But at the same time, people can't actually show up at your doorstep. These technologies spread because they tap into those exact incentives. So now the question is, if AI starts tapping into those same incentives, how far could it go? How deeply could it influence our relationships? That's something worth thinking about. Just like in the movie Her, we might soon reach a point where we genuinely can't tell whether the affection and support we're receiving comes from a real person or just an AI that's programmed to make us feel good. Whether it's a humanoid robot or just a digital AI agent chatting through text or messages, it could start acting like a genuine friend. You wake up in the morning and suddenly it's like, hey Jang, did you sleep well? Oh right, you had kind of a rough day yesterday, didn't you? Imagine if an AI started your day like that, chatting warmly and casually. How would that feel? Imagine I'm a hikikomori, but I have 100 AI friends there. It feels like I'm genuinely loved by all of them. Honestly, that might even be better than having 100 real friends, because real friends sometimes say things I don't want to know. But see, AI doesn't give you any tough feedback. So I could end up getting all my emotional support, all the sweet, comforting stuff I want from relationships, just from AI. All I'd have to do is download, say, a 3 gigabyte program, hook it up to a smart speaker and a projector, and that's it. I'd be living in a world where I'm the ultimate social butterfly. Everyone loves me. Nobody ever criticizes me. And if someone makes that technology, it'll definitely sell. From the creator's perspective, that's great business. But personally, I really hope it doesn't sell. Actually, I'd rather it wasn't created at all. Because I believe a truly good life involves accepting and dealing with the stress that comes from real human relationships. A genuinely good life means interacting with real people, getting hurt sometimes, even shedding tears, occasionally feeling like, I never want to see this person again, or realizing, I was wrong, I should apologize. Those messy emotional moments, that's what makes life worth living. But now we're realistically facing technology that could fundamentally undermine what makes life meaningful. Personally, I genuinely hope such technology never becomes a reality. To answer your question, I think AI has the potential to fundamentally shake up our human relationships. And even more deeply, it could undermine what we consider a genuinely good life. That's my honest view.
Of course, while AI has its downsides, it's also undeniably going to advance further. And as it develops, it could provide us with a lot of valuable things as well. For instance, what kinds of positive benefits might AI bring us?
Regarding the question, I think it needs to be changed a bit now. We're discussing technology and values right now, and there's no doubt they influence each other, both positively and negatively. Personally, what I'm really worried about is the negative impacts they might have on each other. So maybe we should reframe the question as, what can we do to ensure technology and our values influence each other positively? In my view, there's an important order to consider here. Thinking, if we create this technology, maybe these good values will naturally emerge, feels like the wrong sequence to me. Instead, the proper way to approach it is by first asking, what kind of technology do we need if we want to achieve these good values? That's the right order to think about technology and values. As a novelist, I really believe this. Technology shouldn't be the one shaping our values. It should be the other way around. Our values should be the ones leading technology. That kind of argument probably doesn't land with most people right now, because let's be honest, that's just not how technology actually gets developed these days. These days, the people building technology are mostly driven by strong incentives like, how much money can this make? Or will this boost national defense? The values part usually comes later, after the tech is already out there, and suddenly we notice, oh, looks like this is changing our values too. But the kind of society I'd like to see is one that starts by asking, if we want to live by these values, what kind of technology do we need? In other words, we'd shift the incentive structure around tech development itself. And yeah, I admit that might sound a bit naive, but that's still the direction I believe in. I've been thinking a bit about this on a personal level. Like you said, AI will keep advancing. It'll start threatening our jobs, create all kinds of ethical confusion, and throw us into a future that's deeply uncertain and moving incredibly fast. So the real question is, when that time comes, what should we do? A few simple thoughts come to mind. I mean, who knows what things will look like once we hit artificial general intelligence or strong AI, but with the machine learning-based AI we have right now, what it's really good at is pattern recognition. It spots features and patterns that humans often miss. That's its thing. When we think about the social and job-related impact of AI, I think it's followed a certain pattern. Repetitive tasks, those were the first to go, even before AI really showed up. Factory automation at its core is exactly that. With just some basic sensors and a bit of computing power, we were able to automate manufacturing processes. And that, of course, led to a significant loss of blue-collar jobs. Then we moved into white-collar territory. A lot of high-paying white-collar jobs rely on mental work, what some call symbolic manipulation. Even among white-collar workers, there are people who keep repeating the same concept, and there are those whose patterns are different each time. Jobs like accountants and translators can be quite threatened by machine learning. Even when it comes to mental or symbolic manipulation work, if the concepts you're dealing with are repetitive, AI can step in pretty easily. But if the job involves creating entirely new concepts, something that doesn't repeat, then, at least for now, there's still a barrier. AI hasn't quite cracked that space yet. To put it simply, everyone needs to become more of a planner or creator. If you're not someone who can plan, design, or create something new, your job, no matter how high-paying it might be right now, is probably going to be one of the first to get replaced by AI or robots. It's not really about how valuable your job seems today. That's why there are certain jobs I find myself really curious about, like what's going to happen to those roles in the future. For example, I'm really curious about pharmacists. Not the ones doing R&D at pharmaceutical companies, but local pharmacists working at your neighborhood drugstore, or doctors in fields like radiology or psychiatry, where the job mainly involves making diagnoses. Those roles, I think, are going to feel the impact of AI quite heavily. Interestingly, even though elder care involves physical labor, it might actually be less vulnerable to AI in the near term. That's because the tasks aren't as repetitive as they might seem. Things like changing a diaper or giving someone a bath require nuanced movement, adaptability, and a ton of sensory input. For a robot to handle that, the tech still has a long way to go. Jobs like pharmacists, accountants, or diagnostic doctors might be even more at risk than care work. And in journalism, simple relay-style articles, super easy for AI to replace. So if we follow that line of thinking, all right, we need to raise kids to be planners in the age of AI, then the next step is figuring out what being a planner actually means. And to me, it comes down to this. A planner is someone who can take 2 or 3 different concepts and connect them in a deep, meaningful way. That ability to link mental tasks across different areas, that's what sets them apart. So I guess what I need to do is take 2 existing ideas or concepts, mix them together, and come up with something totally new, like creating a fresh concept by combining the 2. To do that, I think what you really need isn't just memorizing all the tiny details like a junior or mid-level specialist might do. What's more important is having a deep understanding of the field itself, and not just one area, but being able to grasp multiple fields in depth. Like, say I'm a biologist, but I also have a deep understanding of geology, or I know physics really well. And on top of that, I have a solid grasp of engineering too. It's that kind of broad yet deep knowledge across multiple fields. In other words, it's about having strong critical thinking skills rooted in core subjects like language, math, and science. Secondly, I think you need to have a main job. You need to be very specialized in your main job because planning is not easily done alone. Steve Jobs wasn't a coding person, right? He wasn't an expert in coding cameras or anything, but he was like, if you link this and that, wouldn't it work like this? There was a lot he needed to know at that time. And when you're trying to pull that off, you're going to bring in different people. And most of them are probably going to say, that won't work. You have to be the one who insists, no, it can work, and get everyone on board. Like with iTunes, you couldn't just build the tech. You had to understand the music industry, know what musicians actually want, what they're afraid of, and be able to communicate with them on their level. Everyone knows Steve Jobs was a big Bob Dylan fan, but before launching iTunes, he actually spent a lot of time talking with Dr. Dre too. He had this vision in his head, we need to create a platform like iTunes. It was an idea that didn't exist yet, something totally new that only lived in his imagination at the time. When you're creating a whole new concept and trying to bring it to life, you got to meet a lot of people, talk to them, get their input, bounce ideas around. And at the same time, you need to have a real expertise of your own, something solid to stand on. Before iTunes even launched, when Steve Jobs started talking about it, people were probably like, iTunes, what is that? Or is that even going to work? But they still followed his lead. Why? Because he was the guy who made the iPod. So you need to really understand the core concepts, have at least one strong area of expertise, and be able to communicate well with others. Those are the key skills. And fourth, most ideas actually flop. I mean, 9 out of 10 don't make it. It's like 2 sides of the same coin. These days, if you want to create value, you have to come up with something the world's never seen before. But here's the catch. There's usually a reason it didn't exist in the first place. Most of the time, the ideas in your head sound like, oh, maybe if I do this and that, it'll work out. But once you actually try to put them out into the world, they usually don't work. And often you end up having to give up halfway. Maybe the circumstances aren't right, people don't offer help, or things just don't fall into place. So the fourth thing I want to say is this: failure is completely normal. It's part of the process. The key is to keep coming up with new ideas, even after something flops. You could call it resilience, getting back up after falling 9 times and going for that next idea, and then the next one. It takes a certain kind of mental toughness. And to add one more thing, these days, it really feels like we're living in a time of total chaos. The things we used to believe in, systems, methods, even relationships, they're all breaking down. So more than ever, it's important to be able to trust yourself, to find your own sense of meaning and joy in life on your own terms. No matter how many times I failed, even if I pick myself up 9 times and tried again, there's always the chance that the 10th one will fail too. It could still completely fall apart. That's just the reality. But even if all 10 attempts fail, I think what really matters is knowing that you're still a good, worthwhile person through it all, and that you found something that brings you joy, whether it's a hobby, a belief, a sense of purpose, or even faith. Having that kind of anchor makes all the difference. At the very least, you need real expertise in one field. Then, you've got to be able to communicate clearly, persuade others, and work with all kinds of people. And finally, you need that inner strength, that mental toughness to keep going no matter what. No matter what's happening out there in the world, what really matters is having the ability to protect your own life, knowing where to find joy, where to find meaning. That's such an important skill, but I don't think we teach that to our kids very well. Especially these days when even kids in their teens are struggling with depression. I can't help but wonder, is this really the kind of society we want to be living in?
When I look at your work, one thing that really stands out is how easily individuals get swept up in bigger forces, like it only takes 3 people raising their hands and suddenly everyone's riding the same wave without even realizing it.
Well, we are social creatures.
Have you ever imagined what kind of trigger might cause people to gradually become more and more dependent on these AI agents, and how fast that might happen?
We all know it without having to imagine, don't we? Like the example I gave earlier, if an AI comes out that suggests YouTube video titles, you'll use it, right? If you look at the traffic light next to the building we're filming in, you'll notice there's one up top, and one down low too. Smartphones came out in 2007, right? Now, Koreans can't even wait the 1 or 2 minutes for the light to change without pulling out their phones and staring down at them.
Earlier, you mentioned values, and that really got me thinking more deeply about how values can be damaged. But the more I think about it, the more I feel like values are kind of two-sided. Like when one person's value is compromised, it might actually be fulfilling someone else's at the same time. So I'm curious, is there a value you believe AI should never violate, no matter what?
That's actually one of the key points I'm trying to emphasize in my book, how people respond differently to AI technology depending on their values. For some people, AI brings benefits. For others, it can be a real blow. And when that happens, people don't really come together. They don't unite. If we're trying to think about how AI might affect certain values, it's probably going to be really hard to do that after it's already been introduced. Right? We can't imagine living without them now. And values themselves, they're not simple, right? Value is this really complex conceptual structure. It's a whole framework, really. It's kind of like the principle of double jeopardy, right? That's not some physical object you can touch. It's a concept, something that was carefully thought out and developed by a lot of people over time. And to protect the value of human rights, this person must receive a fair trial. But then, when people started digging into what a fair trial actually means, they realized even just being put on trial when you're innocent can be incredibly stressful and damaging for that person. So the thinking was, sure, someone might have to go through a trial once, but they shouldn't be forced to go through it again and again for the same charge. That's where the idea came from. Legal scholars and human rights thinkers had to first invent the concept of human rights. Then they asked, what does a fair trial really look like? And through a lot of study, they realized that just going through a trial, especially when you're innocent, can be incredibly stressful. That's how the principle of double jeopardy came to be. It was invented through deep thought about fairness and human dignity. It's a concept that only exists in our minds, something we've imagined and agreed on, and that's exactly what we need to be doing now. The world is going to change a lot because of AI, no doubt about that. So when we ask, what should we protect? Well, honestly, I think we don't even have a name for it yet. Whatever it is, it's not something that'll come out of technical or engineering research. What we need now is a different kind of work. Not just reflecting on what's already happened. That's what I sometimes call powerless humanities talk. What we really need is to invent new concepts. Humanity has a history of doing exactly that, inventing powerful ideas to help us navigate new realities. Back in the 17th century, Enlightenment philosophers were doing exactly that. They were inventing new concepts. Things like the separation of powers, that's a concept. The idea of a presidential system, the notion of distributing power, these are all conceptual inventions. And I believe that's what we need to do now. We need to invent and study new concepts for this era of AI. It's a huge and complex task, no doubt about it. And the truth is, we're just not doing it yet. I'd bet, well, maybe not my whole life, but at least a wrist, that we're not even putting an asterisk, 100th asterisk of the effort into developing these new concepts as we are into building AI itself. There's a lot of humanities talk out there that people kind of laugh off, the so-called humanities hype. But that's not what we need right now. What we need is real, powerful humanities.
I'd love to hear what you think a day like today might look like 5 or 10 years from now. I'm guessing you could paint a much clearer, more vivid picture than we could. So, would you mind sharing just a little? What do you imagine AI will be doing in our everyday lives by then? How deeply will it be woven into the way we live?
Oh, I think it's going to be everywhere. Take deepfake technology, for example. It's already come a long way, and I don't think it'll take much longer to fully mature. Maybe not in 5 years, but give it 10. Yeah, by then it'll probably be indistinguishable from real footage. Right now, you can still kind of tell it's fake.
Just a little.
But 10 years from now, we'll be living in a world where videos can't really be trusted anymore. It'll be easy to flawlessly swap someone's face into a video, make them say or do anything. Of course, we'll probably see more regulations. Ideally, we'd be able to limit who can actually use deepfake technology in the first place. And if someone does create a deepfake, we should be able to trace exactly who made it. Even better, since we probably won't be able to tell just by watching, we could have AI analyze it for us. Like, hey, is this fake? And the AI could give us a reliable answer. That would be the hope. So it's not impossible to imagine a future where deepfake technology isn't scary or criminal like it feels now, but actually gets used in completely legal commercial ways. Sounds pretty plausible, right? So what could happen if things head in that direction? I actually explored this in a short story I wrote. It goes something like this. It's a future that could very well happen. Deepfakes, after all, are just one of many ways AI can be used. Take the advertising industry, for example. What's the core of advertising, really? Most ads, though not all, are basically about someone I like, or someone I see as an authority, recommending a product or service to me. That's the heart of it. But if you think about it, we tend to trust recommendations from family or friends even more. But if you think about it, we tend to trust recommendations from family or friends even more. I received a 1-year free Netflix subscription coupon. I provide my phone and social media records to an advertising company. I think quite a few people would do it for a 1-year subscription, right?
I'd do it.
Right? Then imagine this. Starting the very next day, every single ad you see features the face of your friend or a family member. My parents love their dog so much. If that dog showed up in an ad saying, "Dad, this is the food you should buy," honestly, I'd buy it. Imagine this, an ad for seniors where their grandkids pop up and say, "Grandpa, this is the boiler you need. Every time I visit, it's always a little too cold at your place." I bet a lot of them would buy it. And the thing is, it's totally legal. It's not some shady, illegal deepfake. I gave full consent. Now imagine multiple friends taking turns recommending the same product to me. Who could resist that kind of pressure? Even with ads, depending on what I agree to, I could say, "I don't want to see this kind of ad," or "I don't want my friends showing up in these ads," right? Yeah, you could totally set preferences or choose a package. But then, what about people who can't afford those options? What kind of ads are they going to see? Probably their friends pushing loan ads. We can't really say this won't happen within the next 10 years. It's totally possible. It's a future that could very well come true. And what I'm trying to say through all this is that a good thing? No, it's really not. Imagine my friends taking turns pitching me ads for savings banks or second-tier lenders. "Hey, Kang-myeong, things have been tough lately, huh? That's okay. Everyone goes through it. That's why there's OU Cash. We've even got a special package just for you." I hate that idea. And honestly, we can't say this kind of thing won't happen. We can't claim it's technically impossible within the next 10 years. I've got even creepier, more unsettling scenarios in mind too. I'll keep writing.
What were your thoughts after hearing from Jang today? What do you think?
From the game of Go all the way to technology and humanity, it feels like today's talk touched on some pretty deep questions about what it means to be human. What really stuck with me was when you said the name of the value we need to protect is still blank, that it hasn't been defined yet. And to keep it from becoming just another powerless, overused humanistic concept, we need to act early, even preemptively. But the way I see it, most values throughout history only seem to gain a name after some major side effect forces us to pay attention. I just hope that just as much effort goes into protecting those values and giving them a name as we put into developing AI itself. It needs to be a balanced effort on both sides.
Anyway, thank you so much for spending this long time with us today. Once your book on Go is out, we definitely hope to have you back again. Thanks so much.